That we were running a little late, so thank you for being patient with us. If you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the Statement of Values. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we gather, we humbly seek blessings upon this meeting. May we act with strength, courage, and will to perform our obligations and duties to our people with justice to all. Let us seek wisdom so that we may act in the best interests of our people, our neighbors, and our country. All this we ask so we may serve our community with fairness and respect, putting their needs before all.
Thank you. Please be seated. City Clerk, roll call.
Member Caserta. Davis. Here. Kolstad.
Here.
Mahan. Here. O'Neill. Here. Watanabe. Here. And Mayor Gilmore.
Here.
Additionally, Mayor Gilmore, please allow me to read the Statement of Behavioral Standards. That the City of Santa Clara has adopted a code of ethics and values and behavioral standards for public meetings to promote and maintain the highest levels of conduct. This includes mutual respect, robust discussion, and allowing city business to be done in an efficient and consistent manner. Please note that, as the presiding officer, the mayor's direction in matters of process and decorum should be followed. Welcome, and thank you for your participation.
Thank you. That certainly is a new statement for us. Okay. Let's see. Approval of minutes for May 9th, 2017. Motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, lights on the motion, and that passes unanimously. Continuances or exceptions? Anyone?
Mayor, I'd like to move up. I don't know how many people are here for the Stadium Authority U2 issue. Is there anyone here? Because I would like to move that up in case you need to go home early.
So do you want both Stadium Authority items moved
Yeah,
up?
might as well take both then.
20A and B, how about? How about right after public presentations?
Sounds good.
So we can at least get the consent items approved. Okay, is that a motion to move Stadium Authority items up? Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. Lights on the motion. And that passes unanimously. Okay, next any other continuances or exceptions?
No, Mayor, none from the staff.
Thank you. Seeing none. Special order of business, appointment to fill one vacancy on the Cultural Commission for the full term ending June 30th, 2021. And just to let you know, we had 18 applicants. We didn't conduct interviews. We had previously conducted interviews from these applicants, and we had another opening on the Cultural Commission, so we were able to look at all the applications again and have come to a decision, and I believe Councilmember O'Neill has our decision.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Niharika Mathur to the opening on the Cultural Commission.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, lights on the motion. And that passes unanimously. So Neha, if you're watching, congratulations. And City Clerk, you will let her know that.
Yes, we'll follow up with her the next few days with regards to scheduling her oath of office, her orientation, introduce her to the staff liaison, and get her cooking as quick as we can.
All right, very good. Thank you so much. And again, congratulations to Neha. All right, next we have, let's see, a consent calendar. All items will be approved with one motion. Are there any items that the council would like removed from the consent calendar or pulled? I have from the public to pull item 14A5. Are there any other members of the public wanting any items pulled? Yes.
14A9 and 14A8.
8, did you say A8?
8 and 9, please.
So 14A8, 14A9.
Correct.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, seeing none. Councilmember Mahan.
Had said I need to.
A4.
A4 and 18.
On the consent calendar, it's just
18.
A4.
Yes, thank you. So noting that.
Mahan, abstain, A4. Okay, you got that, City Clerk? Yes, thank you. Okay, let's have lights on the balance of the consent calendar. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Boy, we're really moving through this agenda. Optimist. Next, we have public presentations. There are 2 cards. Okay, Earl Kang, and then Betsy Megas next after that. Welcome.
Thank you. Council members, our strategy has been to over-communicate rather than under-communicate, so apologies if you've heard this before. The San Joaquin Regional Rail Commission, operators of the Ultimate Corridor Express, or ACE train, released the draft environmental impact report for their ACE Forward project on Wednesday, May 31st. With 2 stations in the city of Santa Clara, ACE is a vital transportation link between Santa Clara jobs and more affordable housing options to the east in the communities of Fremont, Tri-Valley, and Central Valley. Our service effectively diverts an entire lane of cars every commute hour on the 680, 880, 237 corridor, helping to alleviate congestion and reduce greenhouse gas emissions in Santa Clara County. Further, ACE serves those who are too young, too old, too poor, or otherwise physically incapable of driving, and of course all of us who are simply just tired of sitting in gridlock traffic. ACE Forward is a phased improvement plan designed to strengthen this regional link to Santa Clara County by first increasing train frequency and reducing travel times along the existing corridor, and 2, extending ACE service to the growing Central Valley communities of Manteca, Modesto, Ceres, Turlock, and Merced. They're going to hate me for that. A 60-day public and agency review period is scheduled from Wednesday, May 31st to Monday, July 31st, 2017. During this period, the Commission will be holding 6 informational open houses where members of the public can come learn more, engage with staff, and submit written comments. The Santa Clara County Open House is scheduled for Monday, June 19th at the City of Santa Clara Senior Center right down the street. More information can be found at our website, www.aceforward.com. Again, that's www.aceforward.com. The San Joaquin.
Did you say ACE Forward?
Aceforward.com,
Okay.
yes.
Thanks.
The San Joaquin Regional Rail Commission thanks City Council for their help in spreading the word.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing that to us. Betsy, welcome.
Hi. We have another placemaking session coming up this Saturday, and I just would I'm looking forward to it. I'd simply like to ask that we please consider this the beginning of the conversation and not the end. I would also like to encourage the council to make some of the upcoming sessions, more of the upcoming sessions participatory. We have had a lot of good talks from experts, but the people who are experts on this community are the people who live here. And also, if we can, if they're about outdoors, if they're about a park or something like that, let's take the sessions outdoors. And finally, I want to put in a quick plug for the library book I'm currently reading. It's called Happy City, and it is about placemaking. It's a very, very good, very well-written book so far. I will warn you, it starts with a mayor on a bicycle.
Have you seen me on a bicycle? Hey. I just want to tell you, Betsy, that I think on Saturday, I think half of our placemaking session is going to take place outside, actually on location. 3 locations we're looking at, Mission Library, Senior Center, and actually here at City Hall. So, yeah, I agree. Participatory is very, very hands-on this weekend, so we'll hope to see you all there. Anyone else? Public presentation? Please come forward.
Can we get the 3 minutes on the clock as it's supposed to be, Mr. Clerk? Thank you. I'm happy to finally know that we finally have a ramp that connects the Creek Trail temporary closure for Santa Tomasa Creek Trail done. Now, if we can just get it striped so that if there's sun in your eyes, you can see the edge so you're not busting your buttons as you go off into the rocks, that would be helpful, because right now you can't see the edges of it. So can someone make a note, please? They need to finish what they started. Madam Mayor, if you could find out if somebody could put an edging on it, because right now it's black, dark, and you would never see it if the sun's in your eyes, especially after the person when we were out there almost killed themselves off of it. But it is nice to see we finally got that taken care of after 3 years of asking for it. It's nice to see that happened. One of the other things is, as we move forward in getting our creek trail restored back to the public as it should be in perpetuity, it would be nice if we could finally come up with city staff who's actually working for the citizens of Santa Clara instead of working for the 49ers and carrying water for us instead of carrying water for the team. It seems like so many people working for the city are working for big business developers and somebody other than the citizens. So I hope as we're getting a new city manager and revamping who's working for whom, we get that pretty clearly worked out, because there has been a huge disconnect of who they're supposed to be working for. It's very upsetting when you continually see memos that are written by city staff and they seem to be supporting people, but nobody's supporting the citizens. And that continues to be one of my hot buttons in asking, who are you working for? So we need to fix that. And it's an ongoing problem, and I think the citizens more and more often are asking that question of, who are you working for? And if they're not going to be working for the citizens of Santa Clara and the city of Santa Clara, they need to go find employment elsewhere. And I hope that we finally start looking at making penalties and consequences when people don't do what they're supposed to be doing. We had something that was noticed today for a meeting, for the special meeting, that was actually posted for the wrong date. Again, who has responsibility for that? What are the consequences when it's done erroneously and the public doesn't get proper notice? We shouldn't have had the meeting. There's no consequences. There's no outcome when people don't do the right thing. I don't understand, where's accountability? Lisa's doing a phenomenal job in getting more transparency, but there's still no accountability. There seems to be nobody caring about doing what's right. So I'm hoping that with a new city manager that I hope we get soon, and I hope we get a great one, that will finally have the accountability and the consequences when they don't meet the needs of the citizens who everybody works for in the city of Santa Clara. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Vice Mayor Caserta.
I just want to say what an honor it is to have each of you working for us, and Mr. Batra, it's such a pleasure to have you as our city manager.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Please, no comments from the audience. Come forward, please.
Hi, Scott Lane here. Yeah, I'd echo. I'm glad we have a nice staff. I do want to say for the record, though, I think Debbie's comments, and this microphone is really loud tonight, by the way, again. I think it's important. I did ask to try to have some public outreach. I'm all into best practices. The city of San Jose did an outreach and said, what do you want from your next city manager? What do you think we want and need in our various urban villages in Santa Clara? Those are the types of discussion you've been hearing me say ad infinitum, unfortunately. Now, there will be, I'm sure there's a whole slew of people that are going to be applying for the city manager position that are going to be have applied, that are going to interview. I wonder what the public participation in that, since the public did not have a role in this on the front end, is there a role on the back end that we can have some discussions? I really cannot say enough. The fact that we should have had public outreach for the city manager during this whole process. You look at what other cities do, they even had a better brochure. We need to really start looking at things. I know you don't like hearing Debbie speak, and some don't like hearing me speak on these things, but we can do better. We're doing better. The city council is triaged, and I think doing some amazing things. We're having to clean up a lot of messes. So I want to give credit where credit's due. There's a lot that has to be prioritized, and not everything can be done. And I want to thank the city manager and the city attorney and the rest of the city council and staff to do that. But sometimes we do have some memos that are very questionable. You really have to wonder what happened. You really have to wonder what happened when we set up the 49ers where our previous city attorney was involved. I do think we do, once again, I will beseech you, give our city attorney more money in this year's budget. He needs to research to find out what we know, what we don't know, not just about the 49ers or developers, but find out what we know and don't know about Silicon Valley Power. Silicon Valley Power is the unknown strength that every other city is trying to copy, that this city has had for decades. But we still don't have a control. The public doesn't know, and you, more importantly, don't know all the ins and outs of Silicon Valley Power. And so we have to start thinking, where are we going to make up this money that we're losing as we go to residentials? And where are we going to come up with, by the time we do it a year from now with the budget, $800 million in unfunded pension liabilities? A lot of that, I think, is going to come from Silicon Valley Power. I think we need to find ways that we can change rates and find a nexus of something that's acceptable and gradually come on in and have new suites of options. But once again, this all has to come from engaging with the community as you're doing, but keep doing it across not just people for public spaces, but across the whole gamut. And I hope that starts with the city manager process. Even though it should have been done on the front side, let's do it on the back end. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to let you know and the public know, and we'll be putting it out on our website and advertising it probably in the next 24 hours, but we've set 3 sessions to get input from our public regarding what they would like to see in our next city manager. And the first one's going to be, again, I'll just give you the dates now, but it'll be out on our website, and we'll get it out via social media and other ways as well, publications. June 12th, which is the 3 of them are on Mondays, the next 3 Mondays. June 12th at our senior center at 4 o'clock. June 19th at Central Park Library at 6 o'clock. And June 26th at our Northside Library at 7 p.m. So those are going to be the 3 sessions. We're also going to be asking for comments and other feedback online as well. So we're going to send an online link. If you're not able to make it to any of the sessions to give us your input, that you'll be able to do it online. So thank you for bringing that up, Scott, because it's very timely. We will be getting this out in the next 24 hours while we're going through this process. All right. Is there anyone else for the public? Okay. Thank you. Moving forward. We have the 2 items that we moved up, which are Stadium Authority items. So we're putting that hat on now. So 20A, which is the informational report response to May 23rd, 2017 Stadium Authority Board questions. Executive
Madam
Director?
Chair, members of the board, at the last meeting when we presented the last quarter report, the fiscal report, and sort of the annual report too, there were several questions asked by the board members, And this is our effort or attempt to answer those. Our Acting Director of Finance, Angie Kretsch, put this together. If you have any specific questions, or we can quickly have her walk through it, and then maybe you can have a follow-up question session.
Board, what would you prefer? Would you like to go through it? Yes,
Okay.
Angie,
Angie,
if you would mind.
could come up, please.
Good evening.
Good evening. I didn't prepare a presentation, but we can just kind of go through the questions. The first question I went through and actually did a schedule to show you where the actual events kind of went down. One thing I would like to call out is I did put the Foster Farm Bowl in the miscellaneous, and it should be under the football part. I was laughing because I said, well, I think I thought it was food.
It doesn't change the number of events,
Yeah.
it's just shown at the wrong
It's just in
location.
the wrong category, so it should be in the football. But you can see I did say that it's due to, we've had less concerts, so you can see that by putting them side by side, and then there were less tickets sold for the non-NFL football events. Also, on the second question, I think this was the mayor's question, why did the special events drop? And according to my research on this, it was kind of anticipated that because it was a new stadium that more events would be in the front end, so we've seen a decline. But the biggest reason as far as number of participants was because of that one large event that was had last year in 15-16 and not in 16-17, so that was with the participants. There was an increase in SBL sales so far. It's up 31%, and I believe I'd said that a couple times, but I think it's because of the change in the management. People are excited about the team, so those have increased. They are still financing them at 8.5% for 10 years. And
Dominic, do you have questions on this?
Okay. Yeah, just stop me if you.
Okay, if you want to ask something during her presentation, please just jump in.
Yeah, because I'm just going to walk through and kind of tell you the high points. On the public safety cost increase, as Chief had mentioned at the last meeting, there were some salary increases, not just in Santa Clara, but other entities that we contract with. And this is an area that the stadium manager is working with the chief to actually take these costs down, hopefully this year.
Can I ask a follow-up on that? Because
Sure.
that really didn't answer the question, because the costs went over 25%. And I know we didn't give those kind of raises in the city. So could we get more detailed information on the reason for, and in which areas of public safety? Because this doesn't really answer the question.
Yes, Mayor, we'll bring it back, and I just wanted to share with the board that just this afternoon, we had another meeting with Manco and the stadium manager. So discussions have begun where we can reduce the cost.
I know the reducing the cost, but them going up that dramatically in 1 year is really alarming. So why? I want to know why.
Sure.
But no, I'm glad you're having the talks to reduce the cost, as long as we're safe reducing them. I'm great with that.
Okay.
But I want to know why they went up so dramatically.
Sure. My guess, but we will do the research, but my guess
Thank
is
you.
looking at the tickets that maybe it's the type of events too, but we'll get more on that to see if that's why it was.
Thank you.
The council member Davis asked for the breakdown that's similar to the budget, so we put those costs in the actual, where total compensation, travel, meals, that kind of thing, so that was a request at the meeting. Another thing that was asked is, can the management fee be verified? So we were discussing how much we pay them in a management fee and then how much an incentive pay. So this was actually a schedule that was included in our budget, so we just put it back in here. But as you can follow the line, you can see that on the second to last column where it says marketing and booking fee, you can see what we've paid so far. And this schedule tells you how much the base pay for the management fee is, then what the benchmark is. So if we bring that in, and then we also put what we actually brought in for non-NFL events.
Angie, it may be important to just to explain, like, overall fees, 400,000 divided into two segments, and then incentive over 5 million.
So it increases each year. So in the 16-17, it was 212,000, but yes, but it's divided by two.
I had a question, and you're talking about, you know, non-NFL events. You know, I know the Cowboy Stadium's fairly new, and a few others. Do we have any idea of, are our events on par with some of the newer stadiums, or are they higher or lower? And then, do we have an idea of what sort of response of people, it went well or didn't go well, they would like to redo it, you know, some sort of benchmarking, and, you know, I don't mean to put you on the spot per se, and maybe city managers could respond to that, or other people in the audience, but.
Vice Mayor, actually, I mean, as you can well imagine, Angie is a numbers person. We have stadium manager here in the council chamber, so maybe he can come up and talk about that.
I was going to say
Jim Mercurio is here.
the same thing, that he could probably answer that question.
Okay, so those are two questions that I have. Okay.
Do you want now? Or? Okay, I'll finish.
Yeah, why don't you finish?
Okay.
Please.
Number 8 is, what was the impact of not using the golf course parking lot and golf course to park? And then, so our answer there was, we are seeing a decline in the revenue because of the stadium no longer using that golf course. But according to the stadium manager, there has been a plus as far as the egress, the traffic going in and out, so that there was a positive. So someone had asked, where is the STR on the levis.com website? So I just gave the link and picked snapshots to show people where it's at. And another question was, does the 49ers have an interest in the STRs? And that answer is no. And have the 49ers reimbursed the city for the police double time? That's yes, and they have also reimbursed us for the item that the double badgers and miscellaneous employees that we approved last week. So we've received all of that.
Okay.
And Mayor,
Council? Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Madam
Go
Chair,
ahead.
Mr. Al Guido is here, president of the team, and maybe he wants to answer, or
Let me, before Mr. Guido comes up, does anyone on the dais up here have any questions before Angie sits down? No one? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Guido, would you like to come up and say something?
Thank you, Mayor Gilmore, council members. So, Councilmember Caserta, to answer your question, we gave City Attorney a presentation the other day on non-NFL events, so obviously we'll handle the, sorry.
Yeah, if you can.
I'm not as tall as Scott, so I move it down. My apologies. We gave the City Attorney and staff a presentation the other day on non-NFL events, a number of non-NFL events over the course of the last 3 years, but specifically to your question on large-scale events as it compares to Cowboys Stadium. And then we use New York as kind of our other benchmark because it's an open-air venue. Cowboys is a dome, so maybe they could do basketball and boxing, or we can't do some of those. So to just give you an idea, in the first 24 months of operation, we've done 32 large-scale events at an average attendance capacity of 85%. If you take Pure Stadium A, I don't like giving other teams information, but Pure Stadium A, 30 events at 77% attendance capacity, because obviously not all events sell out. Angie brought up the Foster Farms Bowl and thought it was a food. It doesn't necessarily sell out, although a great event. And Pure Stadium B, again, another stadium, which is 33 large-scale events, which did 69% of attendance average capacity. And I think what we're most proud of, if you look at this, the scale of events that we bring, whether it be WrestleMania, the Copa America, the NHL Outdoor Game, Grateful Dead, Gold Cup, and Super Bowl, there really is no other venue that can say that they've hosted these large-scale events to I guess to our record.
Question I had, do you have any benchmarking or percentages on, you know, from Google having an event to Copa on people wanting to come back, type of satisfaction?
We do, and again, I think what we'd love to do as part of an entire non-NFL events update, and the city attorney mentioned this the other day, and I thought it was a great idea, which is to do a study session on just overall non-NFL events and how we do and how we perform. I think it's important to know, And Teresa O'Neill asked this question, I think, 2 council meetings back, is same question. How do we do? What is the fan feedback? What are we hearing from people? How are we surveying? And we survey every single customer that comes into Levi Stadium, not just for large-scale events, but for small-scale events as well. And we can share that data. Up top, we score 5 out of 5. 84% of our customers said they would come back. Now, we don't get into, obviously, the confidentiality of who these customers are, but as you can imagine, these are the largest corporations in Silicon Valley that host small-scale events at our building.
Authority Member Mahan?
Thank you. Actually, you mentioned the study session. That was going to be my very question. Since you said that you give these kind of reports to our staff, I think it might be helpful for you to give them to the council in an open session so that the public can hear this in detail as well. So I guess by consensus, we can refer that to the city manager to get that scheduled as soon as possible.
Thank you, Councilmember Mann. And in fairness to the city attorney, we would have tried to give this presentation tonight. I think given the time frame, it was too tight, and you know, city attorney sort of recommended the study session, and we agree we'd like to do that study session because I think there's a lot of great data in here that we're happy to show to the public, whether it be the next council meeting or within a study session.
One of the things that's required by our management agreement is that there be a marketing plan for the stadium. And when we developed the agreements originally, we talked about the collaboration and communication between Management Code, the 49ers, and the Stadium Authority and the city about different types of events and which events would be beneficial for the Stadium Authority on the non-NFL side, events that would be beneficial for our city, for our public safety, and other types of things. Because we've never had a marketing plan or had that ability to do that, I think maybe now we have the audit coming out and other things. Now is a good time for us to really start and do that and work cooperatively together to talk about these non-NFL events. I mean, it's nice if you come and give us a slideshow like you've done in the past, but that's not going to be helpful to us in doing that. So whether it's a study session, an open session, something like that, I think that we really have to look at how we can actually give and work together and give important information to each other as to the type of events that the Stadium Authority would like to see on the non-NFL, the type of events we'd like to see you book. We know we only can, ask up to a certain point that you're the booking agent. We understand that. But the feedback we give, we want it to be meaningful. So I don't know if a study session is, the way to do it. I don't know. I'd like to refer this to our staff to come back and see what's the best way for us to work together to try to, get these events booked and what the things we'd like to see. For instance, if we have, a certain event that's really heavily relying on our public safety, maybe we say, wow, boy, those costs and expenses are so high. We'd rather have more of these other type of events that don't, strain our core services, but we want to do, something else, which are still lucrative for the stadium and, work well with the neighborhood and everything else. So those are the kinds of really discussions that I'd like to have in the future with the organization.
I agree, Mayor, and I think that the pros and cons of all of these should be weighed. And what Angie was started to allude to in the event process, and we'd like to work together collaboratively with you on is, while the events may have gone down on the special event side, the profitability has gone up. And it gets to the question of, are we having the right type of events? Are they profitable? How are we looking at the expenses? And so I think all of us collectively, our jobs are obviously to hit that number every year, to keep bringing events to Santa Clara that spur economic growth and drive TOT tax and sales tax and hotel occupancy rates. And however you'd like to do that, whether it be a study session or a collaborative discussion around non-NFL events, happy to do it.
Thank you. Authority Member Mahan?
Yes, thank you. I understand that we're going to begin soon having separate Stadium Authority meetings. And I think all of these things are important for the public to know. And I think beginning with past performance is important. There seems to be so much negative publicity being spun out there that we forget how much money the stadium's bringing in and that kind of thing. And we need to kind of take a step back and review that and see what we've done and accomplished in the last 2 years or 3 years. I think that then leads into what is the plans for the future year, next year, coming years. How far out do we plan these things? What do we learn from past events that we bring to marketing for the future events? Customer satisfaction is certainly a big part of that too, and it's important for us to know where the customers of our stadium stand and what their experience has been. I mean, when we built this stadium, there was so much great feeling about what a great fan experience this stadium was going to provide. It was such a new concept, and it had all kinds of bells and whistles and all kinds of high-tech things to bring a great fan experience to the stadium. And I think we've accomplished that, but it's important to kind of remind ourselves of that and look at how we use those kinds of features to market the events, and how do we attract the events, and how does that lead into customer satisfaction? What kinds of features are being enjoyed? What kind of things are worth reinvesting in? What kinds of new things should we be looking at, bringing in and investing in? So I think especially as we get these concentrated meetings specifically for Stadium Authority as we go forward, I think we should have a place on our agenda to have these kind of reports on a continual and consistent basis so that we can keep abreast of all of these things, and so can the public. So I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I don't think we shouldn't look at the past and not look at the marketing. I don't think we should look at the marketing and not look at the past. We need to look at past, present, and future of our stadium all the time.
Agreed. And I think some of our concern, and whether we touch on it now or whether we touch on it in the next agenda item, some of the concern is the back and forth and what we may risk together. And ultimately, there's always things that we can do better. We always look at postmortem of any event, of any communication. The concern I have looking forward is how do we treat large-scale events? What do we weigh within the pros and cons? Obviously, we all came together to bring marquee events to the stadium. And there are times where we have to discuss what those trade-offs may or may not be to bring them. What I'd say on that fact is, and we're happy to do the marketing plan and go through it, is what you should all know, and folks will speak on this, not just me, is some of these events, while we may not love hearing it, they're dictated to us. We don't have a chance. It's not an either-or business. You don't have you don't just say, well, we can't have the event on this date, but we'll have it on this date. You either have it or you don't. And I think, certainly I would say to the residents relative to the past concert, I apologize for any inconvenience.
Can we talk about that on the next item? Thanks. Yeah.
No problem.
I see where you're going with that, but
I think the point is our concern is looking at large-scale events moving forward. But thank you.
Thank you. Oh, wait, Authority Member Watanabe and then Caserta.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. No, I like the idea of a study session to talk about, how the stadium has performed. I have to disagree. I don't think that it has been. It hasn't been as successful, frankly, or achieved the goals that originally were set out. And I know some of what I want to say should go to the next item. However, I do want to say that in light of having a study session, I think two of the important issues to discuss are a noise ordinance and continuing it and following best practices to make sure that our neighbors are protected, and most importantly, a curfew going forward. I think those are two very important issues that we need to discuss. Thank you.
Thank
you. Authority Member Caserta.
Yeah, and I know we said by consensus that we want to get this back to us sooner than later, but I also want hard numbers like TOT, sales tax, et cetera. Now, some of that has come forward through budget process type things, but I just want to make it very clear from my perspective, I'd like something like this brought in the next, definitely before our summer break, So, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could take the opportunity.
Sorry, I'm sorry,
no, that's quite all right.
Director.
Just to share with the public also that you had asked for a separate meeting on the Stadium Authority agenda.
No, we're going to be having separate meetings so that it takes.
We will start those right after your recess. That's how we are planning at this point, starting with August 18th or whatever that meeting date is. So we'll have at least one meeting a month dedicated to Stadium Authority.
Thank you. All right. Any members of the public like to speak on this item? Okay, then, Ed. This is just the informational report.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things in this report that are incomplete or need a whole lot more explanation. For example, without seeing the actual bills, there's no way to know that the split of this information being 50-50, sorry, it just logged off and I have to log back on again. Having them be 50-50 doesn't make sense at all. For example, the guest services. During an NFL event, the ivory tower, as I call it, of the stadium during NFL events is very heavily full of guest services staff. During non-NFL events, I don't know how heavily that is staffed. We need to see a breakdown of what that staffing looks like to know if 50-50 split is actually a real number. I would also like to know during non-NFL events, is it true that the premium seats are still not revenue that comes to Santa Clara, or does that revenue still does go to Santa Clara? So is that seating coming to the city or not coming to the city? At one point, all of those luxury boxes were still going to the 49ers and not coming to us. So we've never seen a breakdown of where those ticket sales even go to. So we still are being kept in the dark as the city and as the owners of that facility. I find it absolutely preposterous and really very insulting that the person managing the stadium is denying the people who own the building access to and the information on our own building. It just baffles me how we're being told we can't have our own information. And when we cut down to this as being proprietary, I don't know how it can be proprietary when it's our own building. So I would like to see a level of detail to know if this split is correct. When you tell me you spend $1.5 million on compensation, we need to know what these numbers represent, please.
Thank you. And just to remind everyone, we're going to be, an audit's going to be made public soon, and we're also dealing in court, unfortunately, to get the detailed documentation that our Stadium Authority has requested. So that's ongoing, and we're on top of it. Thank you.
And that's the grand jury thing too, right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, all right. And is the grand jury still
Debbie,
part of that?
that's very good. Thank you.
And they're still part of that, right?
I can't speak for them.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Thank you. Please come forward.
Madam Mayor, City Council, Scott Lane. Yeah, I want to thank the staff for coming up with the answers. I can't speak to all of them, and I won't, but I like this kumbaya moment. How do we get more kumbaya moments? I'm hoping we don't have to have this court proceeding to have the city have to spend so much money to be a landlord when the tenant. I want there to be a partnership here. I think we should be booking the amount of hours that we're doing both in council and what you all must be spending as staff and elected leaders in trying to make this relationship work. This is significant counseling time between the two of you, and it's really a shame. A lot of this stuff was avoidable. A lot of this could be done. A lot of this stuff can be given to the city so the city can look at all these detailed documents. There are ways we can make sure that it's not made to the greater public, and I actually am asking the 49er and Levi Stadium and Manco organization to really reach out and to really try to step up and do the right thing. We really need that. Anecdotally, I hear some of the some different details as far as satisfaction, and there is no real association between what is spent at stadiums and what is a regional economic development. But my worry is that the 49ers, with the way it's run, Levi's Stadium, is actually helping the regional economy, because I see billboard after billboard the last year for events that should be at Levi's, and they're at Stanford Stadium, they're at Oakland Coliseum, they're at AT&T Park. This is a competitive offering, and we need to be in it to win it. If we're the center of what's possible, we need to be competitive and make sure as many events are coming here as possible, and we're really not doing that. And I think it's somewhat disingenuous to say that everybody's happy, because if we're losing events, we're supposed to have 37 major events a year, we're obviously doing something wrong. And the we is not necessarily us, it's on the other side.
Thank you. Anyone else on this item? Okay, I think this is I'm sorry, Hassan.
That's okay. Hassam Haggag here. I just want to ask if there's anybody from Manco here today and the 49ers. Oh, there is. So I think my request is that, given that you guys are going to start doing dedicated sessions after the recess, that, look, Manco gets $400,000 a year plus 3% annual increase, and that's just the fee. They obviously get a cut of the non-NFL revenues. They should be here every meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone from the authority board? I think this is probably a note and file item. Yes. Is there a motion to note and file this? So moved. Second. Motion second, note and file. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, we have the informational report. May 17th, U2 concert at Levi Stadium.
Thank you, Madam
Director.
Chair. I'll handle a couple of the items which are straightforward, and then I'll ask Director of Community Development to come and talk about noise levels. And also we have Jim Mercurio, who's the stadium manager, here to talk about the food and beverage concession services. This is all related to the U2 concert. And these were some of the things the board asked for at the last meeting. As far as the violation of the curfew is concerned, we talked about it. We did send a citation letter, and it was $750, which has been paid to the stadium authority. As far as transportation, we had heard previously that VTA, I think it got initiated through discussions between their council and our city attorney, and a meeting had been scheduled for tomorrow, but as of today, VTA has informed us that they would not want to have that meeting because they are right now going through their committee process on this new policy that they're developing, and they wanted to wait for that. So at their request, that tomorrow's meeting has been canceled. So that's just an update on those two items. And next, I would like to invite Andrew Crabtree to talk about the noise levels.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm Andrew.
Stadium Authority Board.
Yeah.
Did you see that hat?
Chair.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Members of the Stadium Authority Board.
It's really hard, I understand.
I apologize for that. As mentioned, I'm the Director of Community Development, and I was asked to provide you with an update on the noise monitoring that was done. We also have with us today our consultant, Derek Watry with Wilson Ehrig, who is the acoustic engineers that the city's hired to do that analysis. And so on the night of the stadium, we had him conduct noise monitoring at the 4 locations that are identified in the staff report. There's an attachment to the staff report with his report. So I hope you've had an opportunity to look at that. The 4 locations, the intersection of Cheney and Lenox, 4624 Cheney, on the west side of Hughes Elementary, and then on the east side of Hughes Elementary at Arboles and Lego. He conducted measurements, and based on his measurements, he identified what the noise levels and what the audibility of the stadium event was there, and it's provided for your information. The average noise level at Cheney and Lenox was the highest. As you might imagine, it's the closest of the 4 locations, but also the noise tends to travel more in the southward direction. Sound from the stadium, I should say, travels more in the southward direction than in a eastward direction due to the sort of the shape of the stadium. And the measured sound levels were on the average about 61 decibels over that time period, and at a peak of 70 at that location. And so that information has been provided to you and available for specific questions.
Probably. Authority Member O'Neill.
Thank you. So one of the thoughts that occurred to me, I did look at the numbers on the decibel levels and, the variation. So I think So obviously you've got, as you said, noise is kind of drifting to the south. Is this, and maybe the stadium manager might be able to help, because from what I saw on television, was the stage in the north end of the stadium or the south end? Because I'm just thinking, if there was a way we could change where we put the stage, if since most of the housing is to the south and the east, but I thought in the past the stage had been in the south end of the stadium, so I don't know if we could do any, if that makes a difference where you place the stage within the stadium in terms of if it would help the noise. I don't know, because I didn't see anything about that in the.
Okay, so parts of the question. The first is, could the stage be located in a different part of the stadium? I would defer to the stadium manager on that.
Guido can
and then we perhaps our consultant could respond to the second part of would that have much impact on the sound levels?
Okay, thank you.
So maybe Mr. Guido can answer Teresa's question about the location of the stage, and then we have plenty of questions for the monitors.
Sure. In regard to the stage has to be on the south end because of where the trucks come in to load all the equipment to put the sound in. And Live Nation's here tonight to kind of talk a little bit about that too. But it could either be in two locations. Most of them are on the far south end, roughly about the 20-yard line if we're using a football field. There's also another scenario in concerts sometimes where they call it in the round or a center stage. They put on the 50-yard line so that you can sell all the seats. The majority of concerts these days are in the south end so they can get their production, all their screens behind them, and that way you can still fit about 45,000 people. Can't speak to the decibel levels. I'm interested in the report too. What I would say is, for those of you who were here during the EIR process, obviously we did a lot of sound testing, and there's a single speaker cluster on the south end of the stadium that generally pushes all the sound out to the seats. The interesting part for concerts, obviously we bring in sound due to all of the floor seating, because if you can imagine, just think about it in layman's terms, like a cone going out over the bowl. Well, the sound doesn't always get down to the floor seats. The majority of the sound added for any concert would be on the floor.
Okay, thank you. So Andrew, I'm just kind of curious if the consultant was here, does he have any other suggestions for, like Mr. Guido just described, that they put the speakers down on the field level, I guess, to enhance that experience, if there's some other tweaking that might be done to lower the level of noise going to the other neighborhoods?
So I'll go ahead, and this is Derek, and I'll let him speak to that.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, council members and authority members. My name is Derek Watry with Wilson Aragon Associates. I'm the noise consultant for the Stadium Authority. There's some practicalities. First of all, I think the general answer is no, that putting the speakers all on the floor would probably not serve the purpose of the concert. There'd be acoustical issues with that, which probably the concert promoters would simply say, makes it not a functional system. That's one. And the other thing I would say is that the stadium itself is generally reverberant, and so a lot of what comes out of the stadium is sound that's already kind of bounced around several times and eventually pops out the top. So changing the speaker arrangements wouldn't help a lot.
Okay, thank you.
If you'd stay there, though, I'm sure we're going to have questions. Dominic?
Mine isn't with a noise consultant. Mine is about issues on the weekdays and curfew issues.
Okay,
so when is that appropriate? I'd like to ask.
Okay. Can we just do this?
Yeah, mine are actually about noise, because I'm not a noise level expert, and I don't really understand what the numbers themselves mean. I do understand that 60 is the decibels, and dBA stands for?
A is the A weighting. So decibels, sound comes in different frequencies. There's high, there's low. Human hearing has a filtering effect to it. We don't hear dog whistles. We don't hear things that are super low. We tend to hear stuff in the 1,000 to 4,000 hertz range the best, and it sort of falls off from there. The A weighting basically mimics the way that the human ear shapes the frequency spectrum, takes all the incoming sound, runs it through a filter called the A weighting filter, and then you get this single number level that generally correlates very well with how people perceive loudness. And that's what the A stands for.
So the 60 decibels, BA, dBA, which is our noise ordinance level, is a tolerable level? Is that why we select it as a measurement or the maximum?
Well, I can't
allowed?
speak to why I wasn't
Oh,
involved in the
okay.
IR process. I don't know why you chose 60. To put it in context, the background noise level in that neighborhood south of the stadium before the concert started was in the sort of the 48 to 52 range.
Uh-huh.
So, a concert level of 60 makes it it's plainly audible. No, there was no,
Right.
the concert noise especially at Cheney and Lennox,
Mhm.
also a little bit further down at 4624 Cheney, which is a little bit further down the road. At those two locations, when the songs were playing, it was a little bit like having your neighbor have his radio on. It was plainly audible.
So what is the difference? Because when it was exceeded, it was the difference between 60, our maximum, say at Hughes Elementary, and 64. So what understanding now what 60 means, what's the difference between 60 and 64?
So general rules of thumb in acoustics, 1 dB is generally regarded as not a perceptible difference. 3 dB is generally regarded as a just noticeable difference. 5 dB is generally regarded as a noticeable difference, and 10 dB is generally regarded as a doubling of loudness.
10 is doubling, okay.
10 is doubling,
Okay.
so 10 is plainly audible, like I said, call it very noticeable. 5 would be noticeable, 3 sort of just noticeable, 1 not noticeable.
And you have on here, by comparison, cars are at about a 63 to 64, and jets are 73 to 77.
Correct.
Okay, so that gives us some idea of the loudness.
Some context.
And I don't know if this is a question for you or anyone else, but aren't there such thing as noise-canceling devices that if you point them into the stadium, that it can cancel some of the
No.
noise going out?
No.
No.
Not there yet.
Okay.
It's too complicated. There's a lot of, you're talking about sound going all the different directions. There is sound canceling hardware out there. I mean, there are sound canceling applications. This isn't going to work. That's not going to happen.
All right,
Even in
thank you.
Silicon Valley, I'm sorry to say.
Okay, thanks.
Authority Member Watanabe?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I guess this just answers the question that obviously it was too loud. I mean, based on, if the decibel level at Cheney and Lennox was, 50% exceeded the 60 dBA 50% of the time. I mean, that's a lot of noise for a lot of time, and I live out in that area, so I mean, I could hear the concert at my house, and it was audible, but and so I can only imagine what it was like for the people at Cheney and Lennox. And I guess my question goes back to, and I'm sorry, I don't know that you would be able to answer this question, maybe Andrew or City Manager. I mean, how does this affect the noise ordinance that we, wrote last year? I mean, how does this impact the noise ordinance? I mean,
Yeah, I'll try to give you a very generic answer to that. For the stadium, there were target levels set, not like a real level that if you exceed you should be cited, but these are targets. So the question then is, if you exceed the target level, then is it violation or not? Or that's what we're struggling with too. So.
Yeah. So obviously, well, and the thing, honestly, what bothers me is, in this process of reading and trying to understand, the NFL and football and just wanting to, use the stadium for something positive. I came across some information, whereas, the NFL back in 2006 asked clubs to have control over noise within their stadiums because they didn't want it to impact the visiting teams, because they didn't want the noise within the stadium to affect the visiting team and be unfair. And so there was control over mascots and cheerleaders. And I'm thinking to myself, my gosh, the NFL cares more about what's going on within the noise in their stadium than they do about the noise that's being permeated outside the stadium. And it just seems like, we have to have some more give and take here and have more consideration for the neighborhoods that are impacted. And that's why, after what happened, you know, we need more teeth in the noise ordinance. We need more teeth in our curfew. So anyway,
You're absolutely correct, Member Watanabe. I mean, that's why we're suggesting a discussion on weekday events and the timing of that, and more teeth. And, you know, we need to have a discussion on all those things and then come to a conclusion on that.
Just to follow up on that, I'm going to ask our Stadium Authority attorney, there's a Santa Clara City Code that talks about noise. And in fact, in the staff report, one of the conditions of approval for the stadium back in 2010 was that the noise stay within these levels here. And then it quotes a Santa Clara City Code. So I'm just wondering if you've had a chance to look at that, or maybe we can send this back to you for some analysis on what, because we have codes, we have ordinances, we have laws, you know, we'll certainly get into the curfew part, but we have them there for a reason, and this was a condition of approval of the stadium, so that they stay within these levels. And apparently, for a good part of the concert, they were not in those levels. And then I want to ask Derek here, how long have these devices been up? Because I'm not exactly sure.
Right. So the permanent monitoring system is still actually not functional yet, not up. There have been some issues, logistical issues that have been largely resolved. They're still not quite resolved. So on this evening, we went out and just did this live attended, which is helpful in the sense that and because that sort of request came in at 3 o'clock in the afternoon of the day of the concert, I was the one that ended up going out, because it's hard to ask people to kind of break up their evening.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
So I was the one that was actually out there, and I think it was good because I'm here now, and also because it was just a chance for me to sort of experience it for myself.
Okay, so are those the locations that you're going to
Those are the
our
four,
noise monitors on?
Correct. Those are the 4 locations.
Will the authority board and the public have the ability to see these noise levels real time, like we do at the airport? And
if you grant them, the system, yes, the system does upload the information through a wireless network, and yes, anybody, and so that information is viewable on the web real time.
Okay, good. So when do you anticipate we'll have them up?
I would say definitely within the month, and I'm hoping within the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay, so staff can let us know when they're actually online and how we do that.
We had a major logistical hurdle regarding power. We finally sort of got that resolved, and now we're sort of moving forward.
Power, Silicon Valley Power, come on.
They're being very cooperative. They're being very helpful. We had
Good answer.
We had a little bit of a snafu, but we're good now. We're moving forward.
Okay. So I guess Stadium Authority Attorney, if you need us to refer this back to look at, this was a condition of approval. So I don't know what that means and what that city code is.
That city code section refers to exemptions from the general noise ordinance. So it looks like the condition was specifically allowing certain exemptions in this for the stadium up to these levels. So if you look at the entire condition, I guess it recognized that they could go up to 100 decibels for NFL games and 105 decibels for temporary concert speaker systems, as presented in the analysis. So there were a series of conditions in the development permit that appeared to have been violated. I don't know if this particular one were violated. It doesn't
Well, I'm not asking for that right now. Can we just refer this back to you to further let us know what that means?
Sure, but I would need factual. I know what this means. It's the question is what is it? What's the relationship of this to what happened that night? And so I would have to talk to the noise consultant to see if any of these things were violated.
All right, thank you. Is there any other questions for the noise consultant before we go on to the curfew? All right, thank you very much. We look forward to putting your system up.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Dominic, you had comments on the other issue, unless, Rajiv, if you wanted to start on the other issue about the curfew?
We can come back to curfew, Madam Chair, also, and we also had Jim Mercurio, because one of the questions last time was the food concessions and the food running out.
okay.
So that's why we have
You want to do the
Mr.
food thing
Mercurio.
first and the curfew?
If you want to hear about that.
So do you want to lead into that then?
Yeah, so I would request Mr. Mercurio to come up and talk about the complaints, the concert goers made afterwards, that they ran out of food, the lines were long, so on and so forth.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Hello, Jim Mercurio, Vice President, Stadium Operations and General Manager of Levi Stadium. We have had and received some complaints specifically with the food and beverage operation. I do want you to know that we are looking at it steadfast. We have contacted our concessionaire Centerplate, expressed some of the concerns that we've had with it, so we're ongoing with some of the issues we had there. I do want to clarify for the record, though, in our research, we did not find that people ran out of food, but I will tell you the lines were exceedingly long, and as far as we're concerned, it was unacceptable. And there's some things that we're looking to do to be able to address those things with respect to the food and beverage operation, and we'll continue to do so working with Centerplate as we look to enhance those offerings. Okay, thank you.
So you didn't run out of food, because we did get some.
We did not.
A few quite
from all
complaints about
for all
that.
intents and purposes that we understand. As we went through this, we did not find where they ran out of food. There might have been, an offering or something that when they were prepping or something that, they might not have had enough chicken wings in one particular stand or something, but no food was really run out of. Sometimes food items are a little bit more popular than others, and I think that's really what that was as a result of.
All right. Any
Thank you.
questions from anyone? All right. Thank you. Okay.
And Madam Chair, it's not a separate item, but I think Resident Bress brought up already that we've finished that ramp. I want to compliment Public Works. They went in quickly and paved that area between the Creek Trail and the parking lot. And we heard the suggestion that we should put stripe on both sides, which we can easily do.
Okay, thank you. So on to the curfew issue. I know that the city has sent our fine of $750. Apparently it was paid. That's good. Are we doing any other follow-up on that front?
Not at this point, but the follow-up would be, as I was suggesting, that we come back to a discussion session and then talk about these things. Number one, we don't have much teeth in the ordinance. This was $750 fine. If there was an administrative hearing, which we didn't have in this case, then we could go up to $1,000. But that's what the limitations are. So we need to talk about that, how to put more teeth into it, and whether exemptions are allowed. Maybe, it's one or two items a year or things a year or not. That's the kind of discussion we need to have. So we will schedule something like that in the near future.
All right, we probably are discussing it tonight, though, but okay. Dominic?
Thank you. My question is, and if staff can answer this, great. If they're not a representative, I know someone here is from Live Nation as well, so I'm going to just lay these out here. I would like to know, since the stadium has been doing non-NFL events, how many events have occurred between Monday through Thursday? That's one. I should remember this because I was on the council then, and I just can't recollect this. How did we come up to the 10 p.m. curfew when other places are like up to 11 or 10:30? So that's a second question. And then it was made by someone, I think it was Mr. Guido. You're either in the concert business or you're out of the concert business. And you're saying that a lot of these decisions of these high-level concerts like U2 are being basically dictated to us on when the dates are. So that's a third question. And I'd like to know the standard practice on that, so hopefully Live Nation can discuss that. And then I know we probably don't have numbers for U2 yet, but I read that $7.2 million has gone to our general fund in the last 2 years, and is it true $1.6 million in just the last two concerts? So I have questions on all of that, and then I'll have comments based on those answers when appropriate, stadium mayor, whatever.
Thank you, Councilmember Cassert. I'm going to try to answer all of those. So starting with the weekday events, I don't have the exact number of weekday events, but pertaining to the curfew issue, we've had 2 events in our 3.5 years of operation that have gone past 10 p.m. If you look at the 4 largest touring acts that have happened in the last, call it 18 months, we've all been able to host them, which is U2, Taylor Swift, Beyonce, and Coldplay. Over 50% of those acts across the United States have played on weekdays. In regards to the...
Can I
yes.
button up on that really
Sure.
quick so I just comprehend it? You're saying in 3+ years, we've had 2 events that have gone past 10 p.m. on a Monday through Thursday, which...
That
is that what
correct.
you're saying?
So the Beyonce concert, don't know the specific date, but the Beyonce concert and then this previous, or this past U2 concert.
And I know I'm a history major, not math, but that's less than 1%, I believe, of the events.
Yeah, it's 0.02. So,
0.02. Okay. Okay, continue.
So on the non-NFL event revenue, not having the financials in front of me, I believe the number to be $7.2 million. In regards to these events, obviously we're still pulling the numbers, but we believe the sheer profitability of the 2 events to be somewhere in the $1.5 million range. For us, from the touring perspective, to answer your question on the process of how this happens, generally speaking, because there's a lot of promoters in the world, but generally speaking, there's 2 of the largest, and they manage probably over 90% of the large-scale acts that could even play our size building. Those are Live Nation and a company called AEG. You probably recognize them if you're Sharks fans. They own the Los Angeles Kings, and they operate the LA Live Center down in Los Angeles. What happens is they obviously own the rights to these acts. They reach out around dates. It's all tour routed. So somebody asked me a great question the other day, which is why don't they just pick all the major markets and go there? Why don't they go to New York and then come back and go to the Bay Area and then go to Dallas and pick weekends and make all the money in the world? Well, the answer to that is, as you can imagine, these are elaborate setups. In times, you're talking 20, 30 trucks to even get them to the next venue. And so what they do, just going back to U2, is they generally go down a coast, through the country, and then up a coast. And so for us, they started off in Vancouver, they went to Seattle, they came down to the Bay Area. And that's where they reach out and they say, is your venue available for this date? And we either say yes or no. And there's a lot of reasons why it could be no. We could have had another event booked there, whether it's soccer or some other, and that's where we need to get into those conversations of what's great events. But for the most part, it's I shouldn't say for the most part, it is a yes or no answer.
So again, just to comprehend, you're saying in the last 2 big-scale events that $1.5 million went in our general fund, which is for schools, infrastructure, roads, et cetera. That's what you're saying?
That is what I'm saying. And what I would say also is concerts and soccer, if you look at the profitability of events, are the best events for us to host. Generally speaking, I think if you look at the average attendance across all of our events, the concerts and the soccer events actually sell at the highest rate of capacity. And so where we may take on a little bit more risk collectively might be in football, where you have to buy rights and they're a little bit more expensive. And if you ever get into a national bid on some of these large-scale soccer tournaments, and that's where I say, again, given Copa America or Gold Cup, take concerts out of it. You don't dictate these. These come in major bids. So to Scott's question on how we're doing, we're winning major bids against all other venues in the country. It's why we're able to host the Gold Cup final, and there's over 10 stadiums in the United States participating in that. We won the final. So again, I think a lot of this is dictated to us, and we have to weigh those pros and cons given the revenue that we can bring back to the city if we do decide to have those events.
And then this is the question that I don't have answer yet from city manager. How did we come up with the 10 p.m. curfew? And I asked this last time by looking where the Sharks play in AT&T and even where the A's and Raiders play just for a few more years. Is 10 p.m. the industry standard? I asked that
Honestly,
specifically a
Vice
few
Mayor, I
weeks ago.
cannot answer that. How we came up with that, that was before my time. I was not involved in those agreements and how that was set up. But no, 10 p.m. is, I don't think it's an industry standard, because some of the venues in our vicinity, they allow up to 11 p.m. also.
Monday through
So I don't know
Thursday.
how 10 p.m. was picked when we did.
Okay, and I saw the card for Mr. Preshoff, so I will ask him a question when he comes up here. And then I know there'll be a time for comments, I'll make them then.
Thank you.
Authority Member Mahan?
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of publicity, and it's been in the media that we should, if we're going to be this urban city and we're going to have, world-class events, we should become less provincial and not look at a 10 o'clock standard. Then we have the other side of the media reports that say, that adversely impacts the quality of life in our neighborhoods, and I agree with that. The point is true that our stadium is really on the edge of large residential populations, and going past 10 o'clock on weekdays is difficult. 10 o'clock, and there's a whole, we're not the only city with a stadium located within it that's struggling with this. Mountain View struggles with it with Shoreline. Napa struggles with it with their Bottle Rock concerts, and in fact, they just recently struggled with it where their concert went overtime. I think it was last year they actually pulled the plug when it was going overtime. So it is an issue, a serious issue that we need to come to some kind of compromise on and some kind of agreement on, because otherwise it generates so much ill will for 1 hour of time on the weekdays. 10 o'clock does seem to be the norm with other cities that have a stadium within it or an arena or a concert venue within it, especially on weekdays. On the other hand, getting U2 here made us a whole lot of money, and we have to weigh these factors, the inconvenience of the neighborhoods, the impact on quality of life when you can't sleep on a weekday and you got to get up and go to work, and the world renown of having a world-class band coming here to perform. It's something that we're still struggling with, but I think there is room for discussion and improvement rather than vilification and demonization of our partners in this stadium. We just have to get together and talk. That's all there is to it.
Authority Member Watanabe?
Thank you, Mayor. What it all boils down to me, as this was the law. The law was violated. It's from what I can from what I understand, I believe the curfew was set back in 2010 before the stadium opened. It was in November of 2010 that the 10 o'clock curfew was set during the weekday, Sunday to Thursday, Friday and Saturday until 11 o'clock. And there was a reason for that, because during the campaign, from talking to many of the neighbors in the north side, I understand that a lot of promises were made. Aside from other promises that were made about the soccer park, etc., a lot of promises were made in people's living rooms about how the stadium was going to impact their neighborhoods. And so, and promises were made that, there wouldn't be noise, that there would be, consideration made. And so people accepted this into their neighborhood because they took it in good faith that, the promises were going to be kept. And they're not. And at least in this particular, two particular instances, Beyonce and U2. So, we've got Coldplay coming in October, which is again going to be a weekday concert. So, if we have laws, we need to make them stronger and we need to enforce them. Or because if we allow people to continue to break them, then what's the point of having them? There are, from talking again to people in the neighborhoods, to be honest with you, a lot of them would be okay with concerts going until 11 o'clock. They would, even during the weekday. But what holds them back is the fact that they feel like our city, the city that they've lived in for some of them all their lives, is being disrespected as a result of the stadium coming to Santa Clara. And so, and I was really surprised to hear that. I was honestly surprised to hear that. So what they want to see is respect. by their city. They want to see respect of their mayor by, you know, a stadium that serves as a tenant, and the city is the landlord. It would make a big difference, and I think it would make a big difference in coming to the table and having discussions, trying to work things out. And from talking to them, I honestly believe that. And because, you know, going forward, you know, again, through the reading that I've done and some of the curfews that have been established out there in some, like Foxborough, for instance, 10 cents per person for 5 minutes if you go over, you know, a concert goes over. 25 cents after 5 to 15 minutes, and 50 cents per person, I might add. I forgot to add that. 50 cents per person attendee at that event. So those are the kinds of fines that are out there. What I also found very interesting, I mean, yes, Bottle Rock, Mountain Winery, they'll pull the plug. The Boss and Paul McCartney, they had the plug pulled on them in London, in Hyde Park in 2012. Okay, so I mean, there are people out there that are not afraid to pull the plug no matter who it is that's performing. And I don't want to say that that's what we have to do, and I would hate to see us have to do it. And the way that we can get around doing things like that is by communicating and working together and just, again, coming up with a curfew, and that is agreeable, and that people see that is being adhered to and being respected. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to follow up on that, in 2010, when the stadium was approved, the 49ers agreed with the conditions of approval, including the noise, including the curfew and everything. It was agreed to. It was agreed to in terms of the development of the stadium. It was and I know full well it was a topic of conversation for Measure J when we were all trying to convince the people of the north side that the stadium could live peacefully in their neighborhood, even though it was very close to a residential area. So they were there first, and the stadium was then placed there. But promises were made, concessions were made. During weekdays, it would be a reasonable time. And a concert over at 10 o'clock doesn't mean people are out of the area at 10 o'clock. I think that's sort of a mistaken assumption. It takes an hour or two to get everyone out of a neighborhood, out of that stadium area. So a 10 o'clock ending means an 11 or 12 o'clock, you know, everyone leaving. When Beyonce, I think, finished after 12 o'clock, which was the other time we got all of the complaints from the neighbors. They looked to us to be their only line of defense. They looked to the Stadium Authority Board and the City Council to protect them for all the laws that we have in the city. I think which was particularly egregious was that Manco came to us and asked us if we would extend the curfew. And we said no, but they did it anyway. They did it anyway. They advertised they were going to do it. They did it anyway, which then snowballed into VTA problems, public transportation problems, and other things. So it was really a slap in the face to us. And I think that's what Authority Member Watanabe is talking about. Our community, you know, if you come and you talk to us and you work with us, but when we say no, but you then continue to go on and break the law, and we got complaints not only from the noise and the curfew, and then we also got complaints from the experience at the stadium, which was really one of the first times we've had those kind of complaints about service. But, you know, we have the laws for a reason. You agreed to the laws. The 49ers agreed when we built the stadium. So if there's going to be a discussion, you know, I find you in a very difficult position at this point because the good faith wasn't there. The good faith in working with our community. When we said no, you did it anyway. So I think we need to really, it's obviously you're not taking us seriously in terms of our laws in this city. I think it's really contingent upon the Stadium Authority Board and the City Council to look at, hey, $750, I mean, we had so many emails, what a joke that was. It's a joke. I agree, that's a joke. So I guess if we're going to be taken seriously, we're going to have to make something substantial in terms of penalties. We don't want to do that, but it looks like we're going to have to. You know, how do things go forward? You know, I'm willing to sit and talk about things going forward, but you know, I don't know how much money we made on this event because I don't know if everyone's read, but we don't get detailed information about money. So you could tell us we made $10 million on that event. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. I'm sure we made something, but I don't know what we made. So I think, you know, there's a few deeper issues here, but I think fundamentally we have to protect our community. It's incumbent upon us to make that stadium financially successful for us. I agree, but not at the peril of our community. We have laws to protect the community, and we expect all of our citizens, whether they're residents or business residents in our community, to follow the laws. So we need to enforce them. We need to move forward. But I think that, you know, now saying, hey, I mean, it was interesting to me. We got 3 interesting letters today or yesterday. One was from Assemblymember Ash Kalra, who I don't think he has any part of Santa Clara in his district. Do we know? He's not in our district. Sent us a letter saying, hey, you know, lift the curfew. We had the San Jose Chamber of Commerce weighing in, lift the curfew. But we had our Assemblymember Canson Chu, who supported the curfew. He supports not only the operation of the stadium, but he also supports the residents of Santa Clara and said we have to strike a balance. So I appreciate his weighing in. He is our assembly person. I appreciate him weighing in on this issue for us, because here we do have to strike a balance. And if maybe we lose some business because we're not going to put our residents out and break the law, you know, okay, we're going to lose some business. But hopefully our managers are savvy enough to go out and make more money for us with other types of business at the stadium. So we have to decide, who are we going to be? Are we going to be the council, the Stadium Authority Board, that money is the only issue here? And in fact, I'd like to know actually how much we did make on that event. I don't know. Be nice to know. Is that going to be the only issue? Or are we here to also protect the quality of life of our residents in Santa Clara? And that's the side that I'm weighing in on, is protecting the residents of Santa Clara and following the laws and making sure we enforce the laws and putting some teeth in the laws, because obviously this is a case in progress for us, and we have to, you know, fix our mistakes as we go along, which you're going to see the theme in the next year. We're going to be fixing things as we go along. So I'm, you know, again, their job, Manco's job, is to get us as many events as possible in the stadium. I could see that. I don't begrudge them for that. That's what we hired them to do. That's what they're supposed to do, but within the law, you know, we still really need to look at, you know, fixing things as far as, you know, when we do have laws, that we have the responsibility to enforce them. All right, lights on. Councilman Caserta.
Yeah. So I wanted to wait for comments, but since we're doing them, Authority Member Watanabe, I want to really appreciate what you said, because you mentioned the word balancing act. I was on public record in saying I was very disappointed that our curfew, what the majority decided, was broken. Even though I voted the minority, I stood with the majority, and I publicly said that, and I agree with you. And you, out of all of us, directly live in that neighborhood. But I also appreciate that you said you've talked to some of these neighbors, and they're willing to have a discussion. So we need leadership to try and come with some sort of sweet spot here. And I really want to work with you on this, Authority Member Watanabe, because we're talking about 2 events so far, Beyonce and this last event, that we don't know the numbers, Lisa, but we know it was a lot of money. And we know that money goes to the general fund that will provide services that improve the quality of life of our community. So we need to stop demonizing each other. We need to stop making, you know, hyperbole, you know, type of statements that people are distrustful, etc. And we need to, as leaders, act adult-like and say, if this is going to be 1% of events, and Manco is doing their job of bringing us revenue and events, we have to come up with a way, and please, I want to work with you on this, Kathy. You know, we have to come up with a way to say, hey, a couple times a year, that maybe we're 10:30 or 11 o'clock, and talk to the residents and see if that works. Because we're talking about a lot of money that's going to our general fund. And if we want to put our stadium at a competitive advantage, maybe these professionals aren't telling us the truth, but I want to give them the benefit of the doubt that they are, that we don't have latitude in saying yes or no to Coldplay. So we got something coming in October. Do we really want to go through this all again and we leak stories and stuff like that and blame people when we have a 40-year relationship instead of acting like adults and trying to come to some sort of agreement? I agree with you that for those 2 days in the last 3 years, the neighbors, their quality of life was not sufficient. It was attacked. But also all the revenue that was brought in for that neighborhood and the whole city. And Madam Mayor, we had the city clerk read a norm of behavior today, and we continue to allow people in the audience to make comments when people are speaking. I mean, what's the point of having that read? So either follow the presiding officer what was read or not, because it's distracting, it's unethical, it's not a city of what's possible. Be the presiding officer and be consistent, please. So back to my comments. I want to work with you, Kathy. We got something coming up in October. You're genuine, I know you are, that residents are willing to maybe extend their curfew to 10:30 or 11. So I'm asking you, what advice would you give instead of us saying we need to go 15,000, 20,000? What can we do to be a competitive advantage, bringing money into our city, while also making the residents that you represent, that we all represent, but your specific neighborhood, feeling that they are not getting screwed or not listened to?
I have an answer.
Okay.
And I've heard this from residents as well. Mr. Guido, if you're listening, and Mr. Mercurio, what residents would like to see is some tickets offered to the community to invite them to come. People that can't afford to attend the concerts, they would like to see tickets extended to them to again, a show of goodwill that we know that we're in your neighborhood and we would like you to come and participate in our stadium, enjoy our stadium.
So are you suggesting that we're willing at some huge events to be flexible on the curfew, but make sure that X amount of tickets go to people in the 054 zip code?
I think it's a good gesture. It's a nice gesture, and I've heard it from several people.
City, I'm not asking you a question, City Attorney, right now.
I'm not going to say anything. I'm just saying.
If I have a question, I'll direct it to you.
Okay.
Okay. I appreciate that, Kathy. So
I'm being honest.
No, you were about
I'm being
to.
honest because this is what's been said to me.
Yeah. So the comments that I want to say is
I don't want them.
No, I understand. I disagree with you. I agree with what you're saying. It's a balancing act. Let's act like adults and stop finger pointing and come together. I mean, you hear this from other places. It's like, what is all this litigation? Can't we just sit down together? You know, this has to be a way where it can be a win-win for everyone. Because the bottom line, we don't have the numbers of you two yet, but hundreds of thousands of dollars got put into the city's coffers that go to things that improve all quality of life in all zip codes. And at the same time, our 95054 residents should not have their quality of life impacted, especially when the majority of the council passed a law. So keeping it as is and finger pointing is a lack of leadership, and we're better than that.
Okay, Authority Member Mahan.
Thank you. You know, I'm very glad to hear, first of all, the mayor and other council members say that they're willing to sit down and talk, because that is genuinely the first step, and we haven't yet taken it in all these many months. I think probably the audience would agree that they would assume that I'm the person that's going to say yes to the 49ers and support them in whatever they want to do. I think 20 years of service to the city have proven otherwise. I think 20 years of service to the city prove that I only put Santa Clara first. We always knew that noise and traffic and parking were going to be key issues in the conduct of the stadium, whether it be for football games or non-NFL events. This U2 concert has brought this noise issue in clear focus, and it's given us something to talk about. I think I'd much rather have these discussions, they're lively discussions as we can see, than read in the press where someone on our council says that we can't trust the 49ers because that level of rhetoric is hyperbole, and it's, I'm assuming the royal we, because certainly I was never consulted to be included in that statement. And I wouldn't say that I don't trust the 49ers. I would say we need to talk some more. We need to work out these problems for the good of our community. In this case, in any case, I think noise has to be of primary concern, and there are ways, and I'm beginning to hear some very creative ways that we can talk about to resolve these quality of life issues. Kathy Watanabe had some good suggestions. I'm sure there's many more. When we stop trying to be so negative and we start focusing on solving the problems. What does the community want? What can the community accept? What kind of mitigations can we offer if we do want to extend a concert to an 11 o'clock ending because it's going to be a huge moneymaker for our city? By all estimates, you two brought our city $500,000 on the concert alone. We don't have the TOT and all those, other kinds of broader monies that come into the city as a result of people coming for these concerts. But we know these are money makers for our city. The stadium was built to try to fill in some of the gap for the monies we lost when we lost Great America and all of our other RDA properties. So I think there's a lot of room for creative solutions. I think there's a lot of room to talk. And this meeting, for the first time, I'm hearing council members and our mayor saying that they're willing to talk and not just throw up negative comments and obstacles and brick walls.
Okay, Authority Member Kolstad.
Thank you, Mayor. It's pretty obvious to me that folks feel pretty passionate about this issue on both sides of the street. But I listened, every single person had something really sensible, I thought, to bring to the table. I think that my recommendation would be to do what the mayor said, and that's to talk about this a little further. Clearly, this isn't a death penalty case. This is an infraction. And we have 4 months until Coldplay will be in concert here. And my suggestion would be that we take and ask Mr. Guido and Mr. Mercurio if they'd meet with our staff, and if the mayor could assign a couple council people, that would be maybe the two most passionate on either side of this issue, to meet with those folks in our staff and see if they can come up with a compromise. Councilmember Mahan talked about some possible compromises, maybe so many times a year. Like, I think just recently we allowed the amusement park to increase their curfew. Maybe we have the acoustical engineer that gave us some information, maybe looking at his findings and see how you could weave that in. But to see what the appropriate level would be of noise, but to reach an accommodation. Just talk and work things out. I think that would be beneficial to everybody. It would benefit the neighbors. It would benefit the folks that we've hired to operate our stadium. And maybe we could get to a middle ground. You know, a lot of times we pass an ordinance in our city or a law in the state or the nation, and then we have to come back and fine-tune it and pass an amendment to adjust it to be more appropriate. The one I always think about, 40 or 50 years ago when I joined the police department, having marijuana cigarettes was a felony, and people would go to state prison for having marijuana cigarettes. And now in a lot of states, people can buy them and smoke them. So I know that it was, sometimes that the laws were adjusted up and down. And I think this might be a time to adjust the law and make some accommodations.
Chief doesn't look happy about that, Pat. Chief's not looking happy about the marijuana talk. All right.
So that's my suggestion to you, Mayor.
Are you suggesting ad hoc committee of 3 council members like we've done on other things?
Well, it doesn't have to be 3, it could be 2, but I think that
I have a suggestion. I know that along these lines, we talked about our special study session to talk about its stadium authority, to talk about all these issues. And I think, were we talking about before break, after break? What are we talking?
Madam Chair, also Coldplay, while the concert is 4 months out, but the decision has to be made by the end of this month.
Well, I'm more worried about our discussions about, so maybe you can come up with a date for us and we can just talk about stadium authority items, including that. So come up with a date that we can all be here and.
Will do.
And put all those items on. I'm sorry, Councilmember Authority Member Watanabe, and then O'Neill, and then Mahan.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know if Councilmember Kolstad was making a motion, but I was going to just add on to it, just suggest that we have staff come back in 30 days with options that include, greater fine and law enforcement intervention.
Can we put that on our study session?
Yeah, we can.
That's
put it on
about
the study
30
session,
days,
but 30
right?
days, yeah.
Yeah.
We can time
So,
it.
and could you again say that? I'm sorry.
Oh, a greater fine, 30 days with options that include a greater fine and law enforcement intervention.
Okay, you got that. I don't
understand what you mean by, are you saying police law
Yes.
enforcement intervention?
Yeah, law enforcement, yes. No, I'm sorry, the law, like the curfew, the noise ordinance, those laws.
Conversation.
Yeah, part of the conversation.
Enforcing the noise ordinance and the curfew
And
ordinance.
the curfew, because they are laws.
What I would like to just simply remind the council is
Or
that
changing it, right?
in addition to simply the municipal code, you have far greater power to control this situation in both the development permit as well as your zoning authority with the development permit, as well as the management agreement itself. And if you'd like me to bring back some suggestions on those 2 areas, I can do
Yes.
that as well.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Authority Member O'Neill and then Davis.
Thank you. I think part of it, we still need to hear, Mr. Caserta said he recognized the name on a card going by somebody from one of the booking
We have
companies.
we haven't talked to the public yet.
Yeah, right. So, I think that will also inform the discussion. In disclosure, I did speak with Mr. Guido yesterday about some of these issues. And, kind of some of my take on it was like we've talked about quality of life. And I think that this was kind of the, one of the things was kind of the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back. And it was, to me, more of a beyond the quality of life, it's kind of the circle of trust or whatever we want to call it, issues, and there's been a number of those. And part of what I was relaying is, we have so many things that we need to do in this city and changes, that we need to make, and we've got all these development processes, and and I want to make sure that this city of Santa Clara, the people of Santa Clara, are together as possible. And, we have to look at actions that we take, like related to things like this, whether that helps build the trust between staff, council, authority board, members of the public, the business community, whoever, visitors, or does it break that down? And so, I think we're trying to work through some of that, but I think we have to acknowledge that that's how we got here. There's been kind of an accumulation of things, and I think we all wish we could go back and do a reset, back to the day in July of 2014 when everybody was happy and had smiles, and when the stadium opened, and I think that we've got a lot of really hard work to get back to do that reset and to get back on a path, because as the mayor's pointed out, we're at the very beginning of a kind of a marriage with handcuffs in a way. So I would like to see us have some kind of flexibility. The idea of giving tickets, the ideas of doing some other things to, once again, what are other things that can be done to build that trust? It's easy for me to say, oh, gee, it's only 2 nights a year. I don't live near there, even though I do hear the concerts from the park and Central Park all summer.
So you broke the law having a party. What are you talking about?
I know, the cops came to my door at 8 o'clock at night. We just did a little fundraiser with a bunch of Democratic women. Jeez. I got shut down at 8 o'clock at night.
You didn't get a permit.
I did. We had a permit. Yeah. So my point being that I think we need to get all the information, and we have to decide, do we want to be in, so we might have to decide, do we want to be in the concert business? If I said, hey, a lot of Silicon Valley types have to go to bed early to get up early because we, all work like crazy, I don't know, Mr. Guido didn't think so, but I brought up the idea, maybe the concerts could start earlier. Maybe there are segments of the community, concert goers that would appreciate being able to get home earlier so they could get up and go to work the next day. But I do think that we need to have a more robust conversation that we could bring in some other pieces of information than I think that we're prepared to have tonight. But I understand the issues that are coming up with Coldplay, and we've got to do something, but.
Is that a motion?
No,
that was
that was a
concurrent.
going to have our study session, but
Okay, so we're going to do the study session?
a special meeting.
Okay. So that was
Authority Member Davis, and then Colston.
So that was my question, was from this lively conversation, that we were going to do the study session within 30 days so that we can take care of some of this stuff, rebuild some trust issues, and have everybody, all the stakeholders together in the room with boxing gloves, hopefully not, but to get to where we need to be. Because this just keeps going on. And once again, it's like 5 after 9. I bought this earlier so that in case there was people here that wanted to go home and get some sleep at a reasonable hour would be nice. So with that study session, with everything that Teresa said and a couple of other things that were said across the dais, I think that is a start. But my question to you, City Attorney, was, is it legal to give tickets away from a stadium authority?
Well, I mean, the 49ers are free to give tickets to whoever they like.
Okay, all right.
But as far as us recognizing that as something as recompense for having violated a criminal statute, I think I would have some problems with that.
Okay. That I just wanted to ask, because you were kind of bobbing your head a little bit, and I was curious about that because I think there were tickets that they gave us in the beginning to give away to people, and we said no to that.
No, we should not be involved in it.
Thank you. Okay, that's what I just wanted to know. Okay.
That's why I said they're free to give tickets to whomever they like.
Authority Member Colston, and then we're going to go to the public.
Thanks, Mayor. I thought the marijuana analogy would have done better, but I guess not. I really think that I like this idea about the meeting that you're suggesting, but I think you ought to front load it with really getting folks from Stadco, and I think Mr. Guido and Mr. Mercurio, and get folks from our staff to see what kind of common ground they can come to before you have this study session, so that you have a place to start your discussion. And if you thought that council members would be good working with those folks, I'm open to that too. But I really think that the staff, I trust Stadco, I think they could come to a common ground so you could jump off on your discussion.
Okay, I have a couple cards, and we'll start with Matt Preshoff. Welcome.
Thank you. Mayor Gilmore, Council, my name is Matt Preshoff. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Live Nation in the state of California and a former resident of this great city. I'm here to express our disappointment in the responses of certain members of the Santa Clara Council following the U2 date on May 17th. It was discouraging to see the civic leadership of a host venue engage in media discrediting its stadium management and event partners, including the band. In addition to the successful U2 concerts, Live Nation has produced numerous sold-out concerts in Santa Clara at Levi's Stadium over the past 3 years, including One Direction and Luke Bryan in 2015, multiple plays by Beyonce in 2016, as well as Coldplay, and then, of course, U2 in May. We also have a return trip to Coldplay, which the band selected Levi's specifically for this date later this year in the fall on a Wednesday night. Beyond Santa Clara, Live Nation as a leader in entertainment hosted over 26,000 events worldwide in 2016, hosting over 71 million fans. Notwithstanding this volume and our standing in the industry, we cannot dictate to the artist which venue to play, what day of the week to play, or where to play on a specific date. However, we can and do present Levi's Stadium to artists for what we believe it to be, an appealing venue in a very appealing city with a large array of modern and first-class amenities. However, the city diminishes that appeal and our enthusiasm for the venue when it refuses to extend the weekday curfew past 10 o'clock. If the city of Santa Clara continues to deny exceptions past the weekday curfew of 10 p.m., it will be increasingly difficult for Live Nation to book world-class musical acts on weekdays. Today's major stadium tours often involve the investment of millions of dollars in sound, video, and lighting production to enhance the artist's creative vision and the fan experience overall. These expensive artistic elements often require darkness for the greatest maximization. Furthermore, weather concerns dictate that outdoor dates are typically in the summer months when there's less light. The Rose Bowl in Pasadena, AT&T Park in San Francisco, Shoreline Amphitheater in Mountain View, Oakland Coliseum, Concord Pavilion, Qualcomm, Petco Park, Dodger Stadium all have 11 p.m. curfews every day of the week, and many have residents very close in proximity. We want to keep doing events here at Levi's Stadium, but it will become increasingly difficult for us to do them on weekdays if the 10 o'clock curfew remains in place. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? I
have a
don't
question
seem to
of
have any
the.
other cards.
I have a question of the person speaking, like I said before.
Deb, if you could ask, Dominic can ask the question.
So Matt, are you saying that the standard in California, because we've had different numbers here, including from some of us on the dais, that the majority of venues in California on weekdays are beyond 10 p.m.?
That is correct. Shoreline Amphitheater, Toyota Amphitheater, Concord Pavilion, the three amphitheaters we oversee in Northern California are all 11 p.m. curfews every day of the week, and actually Mountain View has an 11:30 curfew on Friday and Saturday nights. The other stadiums that compete with Levi's Stadium, the Oakland Coliseum, as well as AT&T Park, also have 11 o'clock p.m. curfews every day of the week.
So you're saying that you as a business model are looking at our stadium as a disadvantage or maybe a place you would just choose not to look at any longer?
There are a lot of advantages to Levi's Stadium. You have a great management team with the 49ers. It's a state-of-the-art facility that has a lot of amazing things going for it and a great location. We've sold out almost every show we've done here since we started 3 years ago doing shows here, and so it's a great option for the fans and for the artists themselves. But a 10 o'clock curfew is a very difficult curfew for an artist who doesn't want to start before it's dark outside.
So let me ask this again, because this was brought up by, thank you for continuing to disrupt me and allowing that, Mayor. It's been suggested that why don't they just start earlier, or why can't you just say to them, hey, it's a 10 o'clock curfew, Coldplay. It's the way it is. So can you?
With Coldplay and with U2 specifically, the video is an enormous part of the production as well as the LED bracelets for Coldplay. Those are diminished significantly when it's daylight outside. And that's standard for the industry overall, that a headliner wants to go on when it's dark because the video is an enormous part. They spend millions of dollars on their production. They want people to be able to see it.
Thank you. And again, I appreciate that, and I don't want to get too much in rhetoric here, but this is exactly what I'm talking about. We have to weigh the balance of a professional saying we're losing an opportunity of hundreds of thousands of dollars and try and come up with some sort of compromise when we're talking in 3 years it's happened 2 times, and those 2 times were a bummer quality of life for neighbors. But we got to be, leaders and lead on this instead of finger point.
I think Authority Member Watanabe had a question of the gentleman.
Yes, thank you for the data. However, 2 questions. How many of those, and you don't have to answer them, but I just want to point out just 2 obvious things. How many of those are enclosed venues? I know some of them are open, some of them are open, like Levi Stadium, for instance, but I know some of them are closed. And the other thing is, what are their proximity to residential areas? Because I know Concord Pavilion is way out there. I've been there, and several of the Oracle Arena you mentioned, there's no residential. So again, we have to balance the quality of life against when making these decisions. So I respect what you said, but we have to factor in other things as well.
I absolutely appreciate the balance, and all of the venues that I listed are outdoor venues that are all 11 o'clock p.m. curfews, many of which have residents as closer to the venues than Levi Stadium does. And so AT&T Park is literally right outside the exterior walls. Concord Pavilion, actually, the homes are very close. They're right behind the hill, Mountain View. There are residents that are close as well. And so we understand the balancing act. It's important to our artists. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
I think he's sampling some of Pat's marijuana
Oh,
because
that's okay.
there is no residence close to Shoreline, and there is also no residence close to Concord Pavilion either. So the information you just got from that gentleman is absolutely incorrect. And also, if there's homes, they were built after those things. We already did our compromise, so instead of having another tantrum over compromising, we did the compromise with our neighbors and our residents when we agreed to the 10 o'clock curfew. So I hope that this council has the chutzpah to stay with the 10 o'clock curfew, because it was agreed to, including the council member who's having the biggest tantrum tonight over the 10 o'clock curfew, as that was agreed to for the neighbors to protect them, and it was how they were sold to have the stadium put in their neighborhood. There's also places like Austin that have a curfew. Fenway has a curfew. There's lots and lots of neighborhoods that have stadiums, open-air stadiums with curfews. So it's not like it's something new. So I think we need to compare apples to apples instead of standing up there and giving lectures to people. So we keep talking about the quality of life. We start this session every time with a little statement of values. Let's hope we finally get some of these council people to live by the statement of values while they're standing. And they should just sit down. If they're going to stand up as if they're praying to them, please start standing by them and meaning them instead of just pandering to them later in these meetings. We need to hold up to what we have. We need to put some teeth into these. If we're not going to have consequences to the laws, then let's not have them. We need to have a fine that makes a difference. If our talent wants to have something, if they want to start and play later, then have them pay a fine. The other thing is it has ramifications on VTA. It has other ramifications.
Thank you, Deb.
For the other support services that have to be around it too. Thank you.
Debbie. Thank you.
Hi, Scott Lane. This is the center of what's possible, so let's make it possible. Tampa, Florida, $30,000 a minute. So let me put that on you. The other thing from the Noise Stadium, south of Fairway Glen, north of Eisenhower Lafayette. Why was that not in the sound noise testing? Look at all the trash that comes from the parking lot. Where does it go? Southwest into the creek. They blame people who are using the creek for it. That creek is also illegally closed. Let's be like Disney. Let's come up with a great experience. I have this suggestion, and I'd love to work with the folks at the meeting and with the 49ers. 1 to 30 minutes after the curfew, $30,000 a minute. 31 to 60 minutes after, $40,000 a minute. 61 to 90 minutes, $50,000 per minute. If you did that for you two, if it ended at 11:15, you would have gotten $2.85 million. Not tickets, money. Let's have this go, at least half of it to go to Northside community. They're suffering the brunt. They need to get the benefit. Another thing, let's put the International Swim Center out there. Why do I talk about this? Let's fundraise and get the International Swim Center built. Let's come up with a win-win. Let's be creative. I love you too. I love Coldplay. I'm biased. But what if we get 10 or 20 concerts a year? People, I think, are going to be willing to live with this if there's a direct benefit. But we also need to do other things for the community. Parking program, get them the parking permit program. It took 9 months for Jim to understand, turn off the damn lights for the stadium. They were on 24 hours a day. 9 months, 3 years almost for this creek trail to be done. That thing was built illegally. Stop, squatting on the land that you don't own. Don't put magnetometers where they don't belong. You never had permission. It was illegal. They were supposed to be temporary when that was sort of okayed, and now they're permanent. I mean, everything with the 49ers. Give them the financial information. Come here. Be a partner. Center of what's possible, but let's do it, but you have to have 2 dance partners that are willing to do it, and tickets are way too damn cheap. $2.85 million, and half of that should have gone to the north side. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think you meant tickets were cheap. Yes, please come forward.
I just wanted to thank you so much for your time tonight. I look forward to educating each other on these issues. Teresa O'Neill, thank you so much for educating me on some of the citizens' feedback. Councilmember Watanabe tonight regarding some of your ideas. I look forward to the study session. I think we can do a job. Obviously, you heard from Matt tonight relative to the other venues around the country. We can help study that together and see how we move forward. And so I look forward to that closed session. In the meantime, in defense of our team, we'll continue to work on the operations. You brought up some food and beverage and traffic and transportation. We need to do a better job. Our vendors need to do a better job. But I'm really proud of Jim Mercurio. Jim Mercurio is about to win an award from the NFL and be recognized as the best stadium manager in the business. And so I'll just say, again, thank you so much for the opportunity to meet with you and discuss these in the future. Look forward to having that.
Thank you. Please come forward if you'd like to speak.
Betsy Magus. If we are, whether we keep the 10 o'clock curfew or whether we move it back by half an hour or an hour, I don't personally have much of an opinion. I don't live on that end of town. But if I may suggest that whether it's 10 o'clock or 10:30 or 11, the hard part for the neighbors is not necessarily the particular hour so much as not knowing. If it's a 10 o'clock curfew and the music is still blaring at 10:05 and you're not in that concert, you don't know if that's going to finish at 10:07 or if it's still going to be going at 11:15. And I think that might be, especially if we're talking about moving the curfew later for reasons of accommodating these major concerts, I think that might be one point where we could help to get together on that. If it's going to be a later curfew, that it simply needs to be firm.
Thank you.
Hassan Hagag here. I'm going to talk a little bit about the City Code 910-040, which I've referenced a few times. I'm going to read it again for your benefit. Noise or sound regulation, it should be unlawful for any person to operate or cause to allow to be operated any fixed source of disturbing, excessive, or offensive sound or noise on property owned, leased, occupied, or otherwise controlled by such person, such that the sound or noise originating from that source, and here's the important part, causes the sound or noise level on any other property to exceed, and then it goes into the level. So it's not about what the level is at the originating source, but it's where it is, where, in the residential areas. And the noise ordinance talks about, between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m., the decibel levels are 50 is the allowed number. And then obviously there's the exceptions, which I guess it's a legal question as to whether this constitutes an exception under 910-70C. And even when it does, it says it has to abide by what the permit is issued, and the permit allows up to 60 dB. So where the sound monitor is on Cheney Street is twice as far the distance to the stadium than 2329 Gianera. So sound decreases in its intensity as it travels. You're measuring 66 decibels, which is already over the 60 allowed. Twice as far away from the nearest residence to the stadium. So I need you to look at that. And, to close, you wonder why the 49ers or how the 49ers are one of the most profitable sports franchises, and it's certainly not because of how well their team is doing. It's really, if you look at the biggest return on investment for $10,000 investment, $750 for the fine, where did the other $9,250 come from? So I'll quote an article from the SF Gate on October 11, 2014. Team execs also contributed $5,500 to former city councilman Dominic Caserta, who is seeking a return to City Hall, and $3,750 to Councilman Patrick Kolstad. That also represents a fair chunk of their overall contributions. So you all up there are supposed to represent the people of Santa Clara, those who voted for you and those who didn't vote for you. The law is clear. The city made it clear again in January 1st when they requested an extension for the curfew, and you all voted it down.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Please come forward.
Thank you, authority members. My name is John Michael. I'm from the Silicon Valley organization. You had mentioned you received a letter from the San Jose Chamber of Commerce. I just wanted to make a quick correction. We are the Silicon Valley organization, and we do represent 60-plus members in Santa Clara, so we do have a voice in this conversation. And I'm here today to really encourage council to allow exemptions to certain weekday events to exceed the 10 p.m. curfew time. The stadium provides a significant impact to our community, and the city needs to allow for flexibility to be able to attract investment into the city. And I'm really here today to advocate for our small businesses. The impact of these events doesn't just come at the point of the event. People come before and they support our small businesses. So again, I just want to encourage the board members to work with Stadium Management Company to allow certain weekday exemptions to exceed the 10 p.m. curfew time. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm sorry I misspoke your name. It's hard to get used to, so
that's okay.
I apologize. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? Please come forward. Welcome, it's a long walk.
Thank you. So again, I live in Northside, Santa Clara, closer to Fairway Glen, closer to the stadium than River Mark is. So I definitely think the current fine for going over curfew is pathetic. We need to find a better way to fine the stadium if it goes past given the curfew. It's a nice gesture. The tickets, not everyone wants tickets though. You know, Kathy, I know that you said that, but for me, I don't know if I would actually go for the tickets. What I'd really like to see is other things happen. Like, you know, there's some things that people have said double pane windows, right, that kind of help noise go out. I'd like to see better stadium operations as far as, you know, we get the noise afterwards with the helicopters, we get the ride shares, not Uber, because I know that you guys have a partnership with them, but there's other ride shares like Lyft. And so those cars are around our areas driving around. And then really trying to understand how much money are we actually making. Like Scott Lane said, is that we want to see improvements in our neighborhood. I think that's important. And we're talking about money that's coming in the general fund, but we see our roads on Lafayette, we see our roads on Calle Primavera, they need to be repaved and restriped. We have the Fairway Glen Park, which doesn't even have a restroom. Get money, it's been in my CIP budget, and it's been delayed every single year, and right now it's at 2020, 2021. So we want to see people get involved. You guys are talking about study sessions. Get our neighbors involved in there. Give them a seat on that. Give us like an advisory committee. Get the residents of Lakeshore Drive, that's where Cheney and the other street, I can't remember what it is. Get people from Fairway Glen, get people from Agnew Village, get people from River Mark. That will help you guys understand what our true issues are with the stadium. Thank you.
Thank you. Good suggestions. All right, anyone else? Okay, so action, study session. Authority Member O'Neill.
Okay, I just wanted to make some comment. I don't know if we need a motion to set a study session, but in terms of like some of the things and hearing the comments and what Hilda had to say and some of the others, and you know, kind of what I was talking about, this little circle of trust. There were some allusions. I mean, I think that, you know, when I was talking about the reset of where we come from, it's this whole issue of the noise, and it's the issue of the Creek Trail and looking at that. And having been out there a couple weeks ago and having seen what's gone on, you know, how tragically in Manchester and some of these other events that we're seeing, I think we're going to have to relook not just at the bike trail. We need to look at that whole thing about how people are accessing the stadium. It's not just, to me, the bike trails actually is from a security, and I'm not an expert, so excuse me for saying this, but just from watching and reading what I've been reading since Manchester, you know, the bike trail is a small part of a security issue, and I know the chief knows infinitely more about this than I do. So I would say that a session, I think that would be great to have some kind of community advisory group out there. You know, I don't know about the idea about giving out tickets. I think that there are other things that we can all collectively work on to make sure that the stadium, you know, like making the community room available and some other things so that people do feel like the stadium is adding to their lives. So I think that that could be a very robust and honest and hopefully productive discussion, and, like I said, it may well be that we have to decide, are we going to be in the nighttime concert business? Or,
So,
Authority Member Mahan.
since this is an informational item, the proper motion would be to note and file, which I will do. But in addition, by consensus, to refer back to the city manager to schedule a study session. And there are many issues, as Authority Member O'Neill just pointed out. But to begin with, if we can focus on this noise issue, all of the comments, all of the suggestions that have kind of been floated around here, and perhaps the best way to set the agenda for that study session and have it as a specially set study session, and I don't know if it'll start at 6 or 7, but have it in advance of the actual start of any council meeting or on a separate day or something. But to involve in the setting of the agenda, not just the city manager, but representatives from Manco and the mayor as well, to just set the agenda just at the first study session on this noise issue. So that would be my motion, and then by consensus to make that referral.
Could we also add the curfew issue and?
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
All of the things we've talked here tonight.
BTA?
Right, transportation and security are. I mean, I could see us easily spending an hour on each one of those, unless you want to have a 3-hour study session. And maybe I would leave that to the group to set the agenda to make that determination, but certainly those are all 3 key issues.
Okay, that's a motion?
Second.
Motion second. Authority Member Caserta.
I think in order for this to be successful, and Council Member Kolstad and whatnot mentioned this briefly, is we need to have staff and Manco, and whether it's representatives on this dais, also talk ahead of time. And this country was founded on compromise instead of entrenchment. So I want to make that kind of clear with staff. I would like you to talk with them and come up with some things tangibly where we're seeing some of these issues fleshed out ahead of time instead of just digging into our little foxholes.
And that was exactly my point in asking that, again, by consensus and referral, we get those key individuals together to set the agenda for the study session so we can focus on key issues.
One thought I had too was that we have the meeting on the north side, possibly in the north side library, would be the community room.
Or
if
do
it's
we,
big
do we
enough.
have a community room at the stadium yet?
I can't really answer that.
But no, I agree, the North Side Library.
North side library
It's convenient,
would be helpful.
Hazel's going, yes. Yes.
All right, so there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Lights on the motion? And that passes unanimously. If we could take a 5-minute break, thank you.